Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Words on Whiskey, episode 56. And that feels like a marathon in itself. And we'll be talking to somebody that is very familiar with marathons. And actually, if you think of marathons, he's been in the whiskey game a very long time. I'd say from the start of the revival for sure. And I'm delighted to have on the show someone that has played a very prominent role, although not always at the forefront, but always there behind the scenes, playing a very vital role in helping develop whiskey and Irish whiskey in particular. And we're very grateful to him for that. So our special guest this evening is Al Higgins. So I'll just bring Al in. Good evening, Al. How are you?
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, Sláinte. I do have a drink somewhere. I'll grab one in a while. So we're in an unusual situation that you're actually in Athens and I'm stuck here in Dublin. So
yeah, the roles are reversed. Yeah. So yeah,
You tell me it's lovely and warm there and you're enjoying the sunshine.
It's warm. There was a beautiful sunset. Yeah, and watch the waves lap up on the beach.
Yeah, it's
very nice.
A hard life. I know you're in a nice part of Athens as well, which is great, Glipada. So, and we'll get on to why you're there because we're you're in the situation where you're not there necessarily for a holiday, and we'll touch on that later on. But look, thank you very much for being our guest. I wanted to have you on for a while now, and obviously we work closely enough together with the tastings that you do for Irish Whiskey Magazine, and great for those. And it's great to get expert opinion on tastings. And
yes,
I suppose you've probably had more. You probably had more tastings than I've had hot dinners over the years. So
yeah, it seems like my garage is just full of empty tasting samples at the moment.
Yeah,
wait to be recycled. Yeah,
but I know that. You started in Celtic Whiskey, what is it, over 10 years ago, is it?
Yeah, well, 2003 when the shop first opened. Yeah, so right from the start.
You were there from day one.
Yonks ago,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for those that aren't familiar with
as a sales assistant.
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar with Celtic Whiskey Shop, I mean, it is the prominent and most established whiskey store within the island of Ireland, and has won many international awards as well. But what was it like starting there from the very beginning? How did that come about?
It was kind of ups and downs, really. Yeah, there were lots of kind of corners to turn, and it was maybe just a little bit ahead of its time in Dublin. I think Ali was obviously the main man behind it, and we worked together in Oddbins before that. And he started up the shop because he was like, every major city, in the world has a whiskey shop, but there's not one in Dublin, and Ireland is kind of famous for Irish whiskey. Why isn't there a whiskey shop? So his thinking was that primarily, but as the shop kind of got established, there were a few little sort of avenues that we took along the way, which we'll maybe talk about tonight on different sort of things. But then, at the end of the early 2000s, the recession hit, and that was a pretty bad time. That was really tough, and I would say the shop only just survived that. So yeah, lots of ups and downs, exciting all the way.
Yeah. I mean, you started. Well, how did you get into the trade business in the start? I mean, were you born in Dublin and raised in Dublin and had a drinks background, or how did you get into the business?
Well, I went to uni in Glasgow, and then from there I kind of went around sort of jobs working in wine shops and things, and I kind of started doing the WSET courses and sort of really getting an appreciation of wine. But there was a little shop I worked in Glasgow called Peckham and Rye that was a whiskey specialist, and I still think about some of the whiskies that were on the shelf back in the late 90s that were just incredible things that you wouldn't see ever again. And I wish I'd bought them all. But eventually I moved over to Dublin to work for Oddbins, and Ali actually interviewed me for that job in Scotland, and I went over to work in Oddbins in Dublin when Oddbins was a chain in Ireland, and he was Ali's regional manager there. And it was really in those two shops, in Peckham's in Glasgow and Oddbins in Dublin, that I kind of got into whiskey. But I would say my knowledge didn't really start to happen until we actually started the Celtic Whiskey shop, and that's where I sort of got to really appreciate the stuff, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, what is it you find enticing about whiskey in particular? I know you have experience, well, a lot of experience in lots of spirits, but what it is about whiskey that it attracts you?
It's probably the same as anyone, where no whiskeys are alike. You know, no two whiskeys are the same. You can have single casks from a distillery that have been made exactly the same way, they've been stored in the same place in the same warehouse, and you taste two casks side by side and they taste different. And you don't really get that in wine. You get obviously variations between grapes and areas and regions with wine, but you don't get that huge change in sort of characteristics that you get with whiskey, and so many different flavors as well. And we're only just really getting into how those flavors can come about, and especially with Irish whiskey, I think Irish whiskey has huge potential for flavor manipulation because we have less rules than Scottish single malt distillers do, where it comes to like mash bills and wood maturation. So yeah, that's why whiskey for me is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, from 2003 when you joined Celtic Whiskey, I mean, obviously there were very few distilleries, 3 or 4 active distilleries in the country at that point. The store, I presume, just had the mainstay products. How have things evolved, both from a product point of view and a whiskey point of view, to the consumer behavior? How has that changed over the years, COVID aside?
Well, the shop has grown. We had to add an extra 2 tiers of shelves to cope with all the new Irish whiskies around. At the start, you'd have double facings of everything because there weren't enough whiskies to fill the shelves, and you'd have an entire bay full of Kilbeggan or Tyrconnell, and if there was ever a supply issue or whatever, you'd be freaking out because the shelves were bare. You didn't have anything to put on them. But now it's a question of how are we going to fit this new Irish whiskey on the shelf? Where's it going to go? And where does it fit in with everything else? So it's incredible, like, to go from, it was 3 distilleries at the time, and then everyone knows the story since then. You know, it's exploded. So it's been hugely exciting seeing it develop alongside the shop, really. And you mentioned customers there as well. Our customers have developed as well. So people that maybe were customers and just people appreciating whiskey 10, 15 years ago are now working in the industry, and they're professionals. And then you have this new generation of whiskey drinkers coming along where age doesn't matter, your sexual orientation or your gender doesn't matter, and so many different people coming to whiskey, which is amazing.
But I mean, it wasn't an instant hit, I suppose, when you started off in the store, and you were directly on sales. I mean, were you finding that you had to try and really convince people to go for Irish, given that you had so much non-Irish stock? Because I mean, you do have a huge range of Scotch, Japanese, and bourbons.
Yeah, anyone who's worked on the shop floor would come up with the same stories of customers who come in, and right from the start, one thing I noticed was that the Scandinavians that would come in were hugely knowledgeable about Scottish whiskey, and they wanted to explore Irish whiskey and really understand what was going on in Ireland. And for a lot of them, products like Connemara was a big hit because it was what they were used to drinking from Scotland, smoky whiskies. And a lot of European customers would come in back then looking for Irish single malt rather than pot still whiskey. And getting the message across about pot still whiskey, and which was called pure pot still back then, before it was renamed single pot still. That was a big challenge to get people to realize what pot still whiskey was. And even when you went to explain it, they wouldn't really understand that it's different, but at the same level as single malt, but it's made in a slightly different way. So that was a real challenge. But now, like, people come in with so much knowledge about whiskey. It's incredible. Particularly, Americans would come in asking for an Irish Scotch back in the day. And I would always get a good laugh, but now they know exactly what they want. They want, limited edition red breasts or, single cask powers and things like that. They know exactly what they're looking for.
Well, I mean, I think Celtic Whiskey Shop has played a very major role, significant role in actually promoting Irish whiskey and making it available. I mean, I remember going in there I probably wasn't their best customer, but certainly I certainly went in, not knowing a lot and coming out knowing a lot more than I did anyway. So, I mean, the staff there, all of them are really well trained. I think that's one of the things that you yourselves have really pushed for, is the training that your staff get. How important is that?
Yeah, and it's very important, but it's part of the job, really, and it's down to the staff rather than anything else. Obviously, Ali is keen for everyone in the shop to learn as much as possible, but the people we take on to work in the shop are enthusiasts and they want to learn about whiskey. And you can see where on some of the journeys some of them have taken in sort of the whiskey world. They've started off in the shop, learned about whiskey, and moved on to some amazing things. And but I think one thing that's maybe helped with that was pre-COVID times, at least, we always had a whole bunch of whiskies available to taste, and there'd be official ones on the barrel for customers who were just coming in. We could offer them a whiskey from the barrel, but other customers who happened to be expressing an interest in something else, you'd be like, hang on a minute, I might have something here you can try. And I think getting to try whiskey before you buy it is the best thing ever, because for a lot of people it's a big investment. Some of us, we spend too much money on whiskey, but other people would only buy a bottle of whiskey every year or less than a year, because it's a big thing for them.
Sure.
So being able to try it is very important.
Do you think Irish whiskey is competitively priced, actually?
Oh, in Ireland or elsewhere? It's a difficult question, because you can look. I mean, we have an open market in Europe where lots of us can go and buy whiskey anywhere, and you can tell that it is cheaper in other countries, which is kind of depressing. For us in Ireland, it breaks our hearts.
I know.
Having to spend 15, 20 quid more on a bottle of whiskey that is available in, Germany or Poland or Italy for, a lot less. It does break my heart. And I'm hoping that will change. In terms of competitiveness against other countries, I think it's there. I mean, there are some silly prices out there, which is down to that whole. We have a kind of weird circular economy going on with the aged whiskies in Ireland, where they're not getting to the consumer through the regular sort of chain of supply. So we have casks changing hands multiple times before they get to the customer, because everyone is clamoring for 18-year-old single malt whiskey, or any whiskey with age. And the people who have the casks are realizing, what, I can charge more for this. So That's an unfortunate side effect of the supply and demand situation at the moment. And I think it's kind of important to realize that that's fleeting. It's not going to last forever.
Yes.
Once we have all these new distilleries online, we're going to see a more competitive market in Ireland for Irish consumers, which is a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, I very much think I agree that we're at the beginning, really, of the journey in terms of, the big players have led the way and they've been vital in the success of Irish whiskey. But, in terms of keeping prices and opening up the market and having more variety, I guess all these new distilleries will play their role. And maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, we'll start seeing price normalization and, more variety as well. But what do you think sparked the success of Irish whiskey? Why do you think it came about?
The modern success of Irish whiskey.
Yeah, the modern success.
Well, I mean, you have to give Jameson and Middleton credit for it, because they've really opened all the doors to other Irish whiskey brands. But there's a definite spirit of adventure, if you pardon the pun, amongst the new breed of Irish whiskey makers, and that's the exciting thing, where there's this cross-pollination of ideas, and even people coming up with ideas, and Irish distillers themselves are sort of saying, "Oh yeah, we could do that as well." Where it comes to different wood types and things. But yeah, maybe the regulations are a trump card for Ireland as well, that we do have open regulations and ways to create whiskies with a broader spectrum of flavors than when I say other countries, I'm kind of thinking about Scotland, really, because that's our main sort of competitor.
Yeah. I mean, you do see a lot of development happening across the world. There are countries, you mentioned Scandinavia there, they're coming up with some interesting ones. Australia, lots happening in the States. But I suppose pot still is our own, if you like, that, synonymous with Ireland and, protected under the GI. So getting that message out about pot still. But we're starting to see a lot more. I notice now where we're seeing a lot more peated whiskies as well.
Yeah. And I'm obviously from Scotland, so I love the peated stuff, and it's great to see it coming along. And I was speaking to Alex Chasko recently, and we came up with a good sort of point on peated Irish whiskey, in that hardly any of the malt used for those whiskies comes from Ireland. It's all from Scotland, and it's peated with Scottish peat. Wouldn't it be really interesting to have peat sourced from different places around Ireland used to malt different batches of barley? And I'd really like to see a distiller do something with that, because
I think that's starting to happen. I mean, I know there's a few, and now they are very small maltsters, but I think the Craft Malting Company have done small batches of peated malt, and I think Slieve League all they're going to be doing is peated, and they're going to be sourcing peated malt from various places around the country. So that'll be interesting to see down the road.
Yeah,
and how different it'll be.
You have this geographical variation, where if people are using peat from Connemara and comparing it to peat from the Midlands, and seeing what the different flora in that peat, what it's doing to the actual the taste of the barley at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've seen experimentation. I think Cologne did some experimentation with that, using, but I think, look, I'm sure a lot of them will start doing it, and it'll be very interesting as well. And I suppose we could do peated pot still will be an interesting one to see. I think there have been a couple already.
Teeling have done that, haven't they? Yeah. Triple distilled peated at least, anyway. But yeah.
Interesting times. Yeah, interesting times. What other trends are you seeing
in whiskey?
Yeah.
Well, things like the new Rowan Co, which is an outrageous whiskey. I don't know if you tried that, the sugi wood.
Oh yeah, the Japanese wood. Yeah, yeah.
It is the most outrageous thing ever, both in terms of how it's matured and the flavor. And I think we are going to see more extremes with an Irish whiskey in terms of flavor. You know, when you look back 15 years ago, it was very safe. You know, you had Connemara as an outlier, but in the main, all these whiskies being made they were good, but there was no real sort of mad experiments going on, and so there's that, and then obviously the grain thing where we're starting to use different mash bills, and I'm ashamed to say I haven't tried the new method in Madness, but that really gets me excited, and I know Teeling have also done something similar with a high, you know, very high rye content mash bill.
Well, you'll be glad to know there's a method in Madness coming your direction for the tasting of the next issue, and there's a few oddities there as well.
I will get to try it.
Yeah,
great.
Well, look, I mean, you get to try so many. Do you have a particular approach to tasting? Is there a method, or is it just built up over years of trying different ones, or do you have a methodology for going and doing it?
It would depend on who it's for and what's the occasion for tasting a whiskey as much as anything. So if I'm going through the Celtic Cask samples for Ali of stuff we have maturing, I'm looking for obviously the positives, but I'm also looking for the negatives, and I'm kind of looking for, especially with the younger whiskies, to find out if they're too harsh, if they're not ready yet, if they're out of balance, then it's a question of leaving them and waiting for them to get a bit more polished and rounded, really. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in the Celtic Cask whiskies, is a sort of polished, rounded style where the wood and the spirit are in sort of a nice sort of harmony together. And especially when you're looking at finishes, you know, keeping an eye on what the finishes are doing for the whiskey and make sure they're not getting, so you're not ending up with something that tastes more like sherry than whiskey.
Yes.
And for yourself, for the whiskey magazine, I'm looking for the positive all the time. So even if it's something that I'm not hugely impressed by, I'm always looking for something good to say about it. Not that I'm going to say a bad whiskey is excellent, but I might say fair play to the people bottling this for giving it a try, or nice to see someone trying this cask and seeing what it does to the whiskey. So I'm always kind of looking for something positive to say.
Yeah. Are there any of the ones, and it must be close to 100 now at this stage, but of the ones you have tried, I suppose, recently, of the new genre, what are the ones that stand out for you?
For Irish Whiskey Magazine, Blue Spot,
well, in general, I guess, for Irish.
Blue Spot was lovely. I can't stop thinking about that. That was very good. I mean, some of our Celtic Casks are obviously very good. I think it was Celtic Cask 31 that was old Bushmill stock, and that really blew me away. Bushmill's Causeway collection was just great to see. It really put a smile on my face. All the whiskey, but in particular the Moscatel one, I really enjoyed, and I just so happy to see them released, because we've all been waiting years for interesting stuff from Bushmills, knowing that it's there in the warehouse, and it was great to see them come out. And apparently the next batch of Causeway collection are due in soon, so look out for them.
Tomorrow, I believe they're going to be announced. So that'll be interesting. And I think there's 12 from what I gather. So I'll find out more tomorrow. There's a big reveal on tomorrow. But so of course, I mean, the Celtic Whiskey Shop has evolved. So primarily, I suppose the differences are, one, you've gone online, and that must be a large portion of the business, especially with COVID.
Yeah. That side of it really exploded in the last. I mean, it was always a big part of the business, and we could have looked at the business in a sort of 3-tier way before COVID, where it was equally online, wholesale, and retail, and you could split it up quite nicely into 3 different sized, equally sized packages. But obviously, retail took a hit during COVID, but online retail actually took up the slack and some more. So we actually gained customers online, and
Really?
I think people's change. Obviously, people's spending habits changed anyway, and they did become more comfortable shopping online and coming back to buy stuff online. So I think it's a permanent change, and all the whiskey retailers who are selling online will see that. It'll be a big thing for them from now on, really.
Yeah. And you're heavily involved. I mean, you pretty much flipped now from being a sales assistant in person to being very much creating the online content, maintaining the website.
Yeah, I would say. I wouldn't say it's all me, because there's a good team of us. There's 4 of us, soon to be 5 of us, all working on the website content.
On the digital side.
Yeah. And it's not just the Celtic Whiskey shop anymore. We have Irish Drink Store and also craft beers delivered. So there's a lot more online content, and they were basically new shops that sprung up during COVID. Because of the way people were changing their drinking habits, drinking more beer at home, and they were making cocktails at home. So it was like there's a website for people making cocktails, and one for people drinking beer at home. And we also saw our own cask sales as well on the website take off big time. So that was another thing through COVID. Maybe people who managed to save a bit of money during the pandemic by not going out are now actually starting to buy whiskey casks. So that's another big side of the business now, working essentially like a broker for barrels and casks for people.
Yeah, at the moment most of it's coming from Great Northern, but I suspect there are other distilleries that will be making their way to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Great Northern stuff is great, and it's really good to have it. And we managed at the same time as sort of talking to them to source some amazing Marsala casks that just blew me away in terms of the quality of them. So that's really why we have Great Northern in such quantity, because they're able to fill the barrels as soon as we send them there. Other people aren't really in that situation. What you will obviously see, depending on who we can get them from, because sometimes you have to beg for them and then keep on begging.
Well, getting good casks is difficult. Conor O'Hare there is putting in a good word for the shop, and just said very helpful staff and a world-class selection, which is without doubt true. And good evening, Lisa. So Lisa Ryan.
Hi, Lisa.
So I'm sure you stock the Busker as well.
Busker, of course we do. Yeah. Do you know, I've tried very few of them, but I kind of am interested in sort of seeing how the spirit is progressing.
There may be one of those going your way as well for next issue.
Hey, there you go.
Just don't mention anything very expensive, and it might go your way.
It's like, yeah.
No,
the big Christmas box full of whiskey samples.
Yeah, but sorry, the other changes then, of course, in the Celtic Whiskey shop and in what you do is you've played a big role in the auction site, Celtic Whiskey Auctions, and in the development of the new store down in Killarney, the Celtic Whiskey Experience.
Yeah, the auction has been a bit of a sort of difficult thing to get going, and I think anyone who starts a whiskey auction probably quite quickly realize the enormity of the task behind it. You think there's not much work, but I have great respect for any of the people running whiskey auction sites, because there is so much work. Whether it's just the interaction between the customers with emails, or the actual getting the items on the website and taking the photographs, and
I can imagine putting descriptions in, and
and everything has to be done in a finite amount of time. You have a deadline to work to. Fortunately, that's not my job anymore, but
all right, okay.
It was certainly an interesting side of the job to do, and the site's working really well now. So it's great to see that we've got a new platform, which is a lot more controllable in terms of site traffic and all that kind of stuff. So it's there to stay now, and it's going to work a lot better for everyone, including us, which is a relief. In terms
even
of
the logistics.
The
logistics of posting them out, collecting them, putting them up on the website, photographing, it's an awful lot of work. And I mean, I deal with a few magazines posted out, and I can't imagine what it's like posting to countries where it's difficult to get alcohol to. But you do ship internationally everywhere, is it?
Yeah, and obviously it's changing all the time. So but it's something we have to really keep an eye on in terms of what countries you can send to and what you can't. And Brexit's kind of thrown some spanners in the works with that as well. And it's a question of finding the right courier and postal companies to work with, and it's tricky. It's really tricky, and in a lot of situations, it's a kind of grey area, which is
that's the hardest.
And there's no real kind of set law over some countries. So we can say to some people, we can send to you, but this scenario might happen, scenario X, scenario Y might happen, but we're happy to send it to you. And so it's kind of frustrating for a lot of people, because it can be a gamble for some countries. But I mean, fortunately for you, in a place like United States and Europe, it's working well at the moment. Britain's a bit more difficult. So
I can imagine. But in terms of the whiskey experience,
the whiskey experience, in Killarney, I mean, if anyone hasn't been to the bar, it's just the most incredible place for a whiskey drinker, and it's back up open now. I don't think they're doing any of the actual whiskey experience stuff as such, but you can go in there and try an astounding array of different whiskies from around the world.
I'm afraid to go down again, because
me too.
It would just be, the wallet would have to be left behind or something. But Liam Sinclair there from Urban Bar Drinks is planning on going down to visit, and he's coming over for a few days now, at the beginning of the month.
Excellent, so nice Banksy avatar as well.
Yes, that's Liam. But look, I that shop must have been really on its knees, I suppose, during the COVID. Was it a really dangerous period for that?
For the bar? I think like, we have to kind of thank the government, the Irish government, for their support for businesses, during all, because I think a lot of bars suffered, definitely, but there was support from the government, and it's tough for staff.
Have you managed to retain
and I think
most of your staff?
They're either sorry. Oh yeah, well, some of them, but no, some of them are gone, and that's the same situation with a lot of bars, where valued staff members who had to be laid off have now actually moved on to other things, because they were sitting around waiting for something to happen, and it's not their fault, it's not our fault. But that's just the way it worked out.
I mean, that's going to be the single biggest challenge, I'm sure, for all the pub trades, is getting staff again.
Yeah, I'd say so. And you could imagine some of the existing staff getting frustrated if they're overstressed and they're overworked, behind a busy bar with not enough people. I haven't actually been to a proper pub since restrictions were lifted, but I can imagine some places being really busy and the staff not being able to cope. It's a bit more relaxed in Killarney, so don't hold back on going in there. Go there and
well, I mean,
and order some nice beer and whiskey.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think. I mean, obviously, you lost a lot of the international tourism side of things, but hopefully, you got a lot of Irish tourism going down and supporting the business, which is great.
That's where we've been at this summer, really, isn't it? With people actually discovering Ireland again, which is good.
I think that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But tell me, the Celtic casks that you mentioned, I don't know what number you're up to now. What number are they at? Your Celtic cask offering?
Let me Google that. I think it's 35. I think it's 35, but we are probably releasing more. I think at the moment the thinking is early next year will be the next ones. But I think it's 35 we're at. And I mean, it's just been an amazing range of whiskies to work with, because it's kind of changed with Irish whiskey as the revolution has happened. And, things like our first Great Northern cask, Celtic cask whiskey, were real sort of memorable moments, releasing them and having a whiskey released at 4 years old as a single cask and thinking, are people going to buy this? Well, I hope so, because it's really good. It's really good whiskey. And they kind of, we're seeing obviously a lot of these distilleries that we've been maturing casks from that are new distilleries that are likely to appear. It's a very interesting project to be in, and also to see and learn about the different cask types we use, because most of the casks we do use are from our wine suppliers, so we have a nice connection to them in the same ways that the old whiskey merchants would have. People like Gilbey's and Mitchell's back in the day, when they would have their own wine and sherry suppliers and using them for their whiskies. So it's almost like a nice tradition to be involved in and keep that going. And it's great to see the reaction from some of the winemakers who have had their barrels used for whiskey and see what they think.
I mean, it's a massive range, a huge diversity, and a lot of innovation in all those casks. And if I'm not wrong, you probably were one of the first to be going out doing your own branded.
Yeah, I think we were. And in the early days, we really had to beg for them. And the first single casks we did were kind of semi-official bottling, so it might be like a Tyrconnell single cask. We did a lot of really good Tyrconnell single casks and some Bushmill single casks when the company were before their first takeover in the early 2000s, before Bushmills were bought out. So they were the first single casks we did, and mostly we had quite a lot of control over. We actually, got to sample the barrels and decide which one we could release and which ones we didn't want. But it was Don Cashman, who worked in Cooley at the time, who kind of really helped us get the ball rolling, because we did some Tyrconnell single malt into Anima Negra red wine casks, and the response we got for them kind of made us realize we were onto something. So that's really how Celtic Cask started, with the success of those ones. And I mean, all the stuff in the early days was from Cooley, because that's all there was available for Celtic Casks whiskies. Now it's been broadened significantly, you know.
Somewhere I have a bottle of a Hain, the first one.
Oh yeah,
but there's not much of it left. Yeah. There's not much of it left. But yeah, I should have held on to it. I think probably. I'm sure it's gone up in value quite a lot. But look, it was an interesting one in the first one. So
you can't worry about those things. Yeah.
No. Otherwise, I'd be in tears.
Well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the big things that Celtic Whiskey Shop are involved in is the Whiskey Live and the Irish Whiskey Awards, and of course, they've been badly affected by the COVID situation. But the awards have been rescheduled for when? Is it November?
I think it's the 11th of November, where provisionally, or not provisionally, but we're going ahead with them in Powers Court Distillery this year, and the winners have been chosen by a very dedicated crowd of whiskey enthusiasts all around the country, which the Whiskey Awards are the most amazing experience to see the scores come in and see how people have voted, and to, because I kind of, usually it's me who's compiling all the results, so I'm looking at a spreadsheet and I'm entering manually the scores, and to see how it all swings around, and it might just hang on a couple of individual scores where the results go. So it's incredible.
I mean, it must have been hundreds.
And yeah, I think it was probably about over 100 judges, because not every judge got to do every category. So obviously, if you were tasting every category, you'd be drinking probably 100 or more whiskies. But every judge got to do a good 30 or so, I think, or more, maybe 40.
And the rest,
yeah.
But no, I have to say, I really want to commend you, and I think all those that got to try them and be judges are very thankful and very grateful for the phenomenal work that must have gone into organizing that. I mean, I can imagine logistically. Wow.
That's thanks to the team I work with, namely, and Julie, who's left the company now, but she was heavily involved in the Whiskey Awards this year before she left. So yeah, it's down to them for doing a pretty amazing job on it all during sort of a hard time with COVID and everything. But I think at the time when the Irish Whiskey Awards came about, there wasn't really anything like that in Ireland, and I think it was needed. You know, there are other awards around there now, but I like to think it's the most impartial. It's the most what's the word?
Well, it's public as well.
There's no guarantee entering the Irish Whiskey Awards is going to give you a prize. There are other competitions where you can enter a whiskey, pay your entry fee, and you're going to get some kind of award. With the Irish Whiskey Awards, it's all done blind. It's all tasted by a very diverse mix of people, some in the industry, some just really enthusiasts. So you're getting a really broad section of judges who are awarding points to whiskies on their own merits. You know, the whiskies that they're actually enjoying themselves. So I think it's a very important awards to have. But having said that, I'm amazed that all the cream always rises to the top in all the different categories, and you can see like, in certain, you know, you'll have whiskies that win 2-3 years in a row, and it's just like, well, that's amazing. That means they actually are the best in that category, because different judges in different years have given them the same marks. So
yeah, I'm always surprised sometimes at the award where, you know, the fact that it's blind really is a great leveler, because, you know, you hear people commenting on certain whiskies maybe not in the most favorable light, and then they rise to the top continuously year after year. So I think that's a testament to, you know, the impartiality that takes place in this.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to try some people on more blind tasting, and you know, get them to tell me what their favorite whiskey is, and put their favorite whiskey in amongst the flight of other excellent whiskies, and see if they can pick it out, and see if they're actually giving the best award to their favorite whiskey. Because there are a lot of people that say, you know, whiskey X is better than whiskey Y, and when you look at the awards, it
Yes, the opposite. Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
Oh, look, I could even be guilty of that myself. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, you do have these sometimes built-in biases that you just
we get attached to things, you know, like even just the emotion of an experience of tasting something in a special situation can make it better for you. So, you know, you'll always have a soft spot for a whiskey no matter what, because of the experience you had tasting it before.
Yeah. I want to put in a plug, if I may, as well, for Celtic Whiskey in terms of the support and the charity fundraising they do. I know the Down syndrome, Dublin and Ireland are huge beneficiaries of the charity work that Celtic Whiskey Shop and Ali really give to. And I know the 21C, which is a kind of a blend from all the different active distilleries, and then also a large amount of money is raised, you know, both from the awards and also from the Whiskey Live. So,
there's another charity called Mary's Meals that Ali's very involved in, and it's all down to Ali. It's like it's his charitable nature, you know. But I mean, it's great to use these events to raise money for charities, and everyone in the industry gets on board with it as well. So you never get any questions from anyone asking, you know, if you're asking them for a free 5-liter drum of whiskey to put into 21C, or if you're asking them for, you know, a donation, and those kind of things, that they're all very generous. So it's great to see everyone on board for that.
Yeah. Well, look, I hope that continues. It's a really great cause, both of them. And look, even even if it only gets people talking about the subjects as well, that's a win.
Exactly.
But, I mean, Ali,
it just raises awareness as well for people.
Yeah. And I know Ali has been, and the Celtic Whiskey Shop, they've all been very supportive of the Irish distillers, you know. So all the new brands, whether they're small or large, whether they're glass makers or publishing a magazine or bringing out mead or gin, you know, they all find their way into Celtic Whiskey Shop in some form or another. Yeah, I think that's it. That's important.
Well, that's because they usually come. Yeah, it's because they usually come to us first anyway. You know, when you have something to bring out, they come to us, and a lot of the time they'll ask us, "What do we think?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's great. Let's sell it." But obviously, we'd always support any Irish producers of spirits, and if they're more diverse or exciting, the better. You really, you know.
Yeah. With Whiskey Live, then that's set for early March next year. New venue.
Yeah. So it's not happening this year, but this year we do have an online event called Celtic Whiskeyfest, which is on in November, to get people into the mood for Whiskey Live. So on our website, you'll find a tab with tastings, and Celtic Whiskeyfest is on there, and we'll be announcing a whole bunch of exciting online events. There's some already announced, and some have already sold out, but there's more coming in the next days and weeks. So look out for more of them. You'll find out all about.
Is that open to people internationally as well, or is it just limited to Ireland?
In the main, it is international. So and they're going to be really nice packs for people as well. So really nice miniature bottles and things thrown in there to make the experience a bit nicer.
Yeah, and you'll have guest speakers, I guess.
I think I might actually be doing one of them myself.
Right. Okay.
Which hasn't been announced yet. But yeah, and it's everything. It's not just Irish whiskey, it's everything right across the board. So you were speaking to me about Heaven's Door earlier on, and there's a Heaven's Door tasting in amongst that. So people who maybe haven't opened their Redbreast finish Heaven's Door can try it in the tasting pack, which is coming out in November. Yeah.
Well, look, again, congratulations on that. I mean, I ordered the Heaven's Door last Friday morning, 9 o'clock when when it opened up, and arrived 7 p.m. Friday evening.
Yeah.
So same day delivery. Right. I was pretty impressed. I wasn't expecting it, but
doesn't always work like that, but it's great when it does.
Yeah. And I think it's great that you offer such a variety. If somebody goes, I've often gone in there looking for one thing in particular and walked out with the complete opposite of what I wanted, But
you should try working there.
I think I'd be useless. But you must have learned so much from just the hands-on approach. But you've also done the International Brewing and Distilling diploma.
Yeah.
When did you do that, and why?
I'd already done the general certificate, and I was always thinking to myself, diploma, and it'd be great to do the diploma because it's a lot more delving into the real sort of finer details of distilling. But it's a 3-year course, and anyone can do it. So if anyone's interested in distilling, whether it's for a career or just for learning about whiskey, it's a great thing to do. But you probably have to do the general certificate first. But yeah, I've completed that. I haven't got my result yet, but in the next few weeks I'll find out. Last year was the last year of the course. Is intense. It's really out there in terms of what you're learning about, and it goes above and beyond just learning about making whiskey. It's about compressed air and wastewater treatment and all those kind of exciting things that you never really think about. You don't go and visit a distillery and you don't get a tour of their
air compressor
treatment plant. I was like, here's our air compressor, and it's like, here's the dryer and the cleaner and all these other parts of it, and it's like, no, you don't get to see that.
I don't know where you find the time to do it.
A distillery.
Yeah. I mean, is there a lot of time that has to be put in?
I am part-time at work. So.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I took a week off for my final exam, and that wasn't really enough. Even that whole week of studying, probably 12 hours a day, it wasn't enough. But I got it done. Yeah.
And it's a very practical qualification.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's basically everything you need to know without having the experience of which obviously the experience actually works. I'd say you could learn how to operate a distillery perfectly fine by working in a distillery for a year.
Yeah.
But you might not know what's behind everything that's going on. You know the actual workings of it. And in a way, me doing the diploma is the opposite of that. It's like, I know how everything works, but I wouldn't be able to walk into a distillery and start making whiskey on my own because I wouldn't know what valves to turn or, what temperatures to strike the mash at and things like that. But
the blending side of it would have helped, wouldn't it? The element where you had the Celtic casks, that would all be invaluable.
I wouldn't say that had a huge bearing on it, but it actually was the reverse in that learning about cask preparation and manipulation in the diploma has given me a more understanding of what is actually going on within the whiskey while it's maturing, and how some of that can be improved, especially going forward when you're looking at reusing casks, because pretty much everything we use for Celtic Whiskey cask is a fresh cask.
Yes.
But we don't want to throw them away. So it was like, well, how can we get the most out of them when we reuse them again? It's a bit more about stuff like that in the diploma, which is very handy.
Yeah. Just going back to Whiskey Live, is it going to be bigger than last time, or what's the thinking behind the new venue?
Yeah, it should be. It's in the RDS now, so there's more space. It's bigger.
Yeah.
And I think there were a few different things other than that. The Printworks where we had it before wasn't available for a whiskey event again,
right?
For various reasons, and I think there were maybe some politics behind the scene within Dublin Council or whatever. But the RDS is a good fit, and it's a bigger venue. We can get more people in and make it a bigger experience for everyone. So
will it be 2 days again?
It's got 2 days, and I think the Friday evening as well. I might be wrong in that, because it's not something I'm at this stage involved in. I'm not in the sort of development sort of side of it at the moment, but I'll obviously be working on it closer to the time. Yeah.
Okay. So what are the bits you're working on a daily basis now? Is it getting in new stock, provisioning, looking after the website, or making movies? I know you were involved in creating a few of the videos for the Celtic Whiskey Experience.
Yeah, that was a great experience. Unfortunately, I haven't really had the chance to do anything more like that. But we made a film, and it was like a dream job in a way. But it was actually really stressful and hard work, because I had no experience in that. But I had, through my sort of musical endeavors, met people who were very good at making videos and music related films, and we went around the country and made a film on Irish whiskey at the time, which was a kind of snapshot of what was going on in 2015 or 2016, I think it was. So in a way, it's out of date. It's not relevant anymore, but it was a great experience, and it was a really good film. They might still use some of it down in Killarney for the
I think I had seen one of them when I went down to the experience.
The one on production and history, I think is still probably relevant. But we did one on the future of Irish whiskey, where we were visiting distilleries that were halfway through the build stage, and now they're fully functioning distilleries who've released their own spirits. So it'd be amazing to go back and revisit it again, but I don't think that'll happen. It was such a big project. I don't think it's going to be possible.
Yeah, no, I saw the production one, and that was the production one. I thought is definitely still relevant and very interesting. And you touched on there the movies, but you also embarked on a few podcasts of your own with the Celtic Whiskey Pod. Are they continuing? Are we going to see more of those?
They are. There's one that actually went live today, the Alex Chasko, and some great ones in there that we kind of try to talk to as many people who are maybe not the people that you normally get on a podcast about whiskey and spirits. So we're trying not to just do whiskey. We're trying to do anything in the sort of spirit sort of production side of things. It can be quite hard to get hold of people sometimes. Some people are quite elusive, and you have to chase them up and say, "Come on, can we do this next week?" And it's like, "Oh no, I'm in production next week." It's like, "Okay, how about the week after that?" It's like, "I'm on holiday," and just getting them nailed down to dates. Because I usually have about 5 or 6 people who I'm talking to.
All right,
but getting them to actually commit, talking to with a view to actually do a podcast with them, but getting them to nail down a time is quite hard.
Yes.
But it's very good, and I learned a lot through it. On speaking to people like Frank McCarty, who used to run Bushmills in Springbank. That
was a big one
incredible
now to
talking
have.
to him. And it's such an interesting guy, with this amazing knowledge, but it was all learned on the job. He never, went to distilling school or anything. He just learned everything hands-on and through experience of learning from other people. And then I ended up speaking to other people on the podcast who had worked under Frank.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Much everything I knew, so it's great to see that sort of side of things where people, the continuation of knowledge is going on.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge interest, and it's only growing as far as I can see in terms of the interest people have in what's going on. But you mentioned there that I know that you are a pretty accomplished musician, primarily drums, although I do think you play keyboards and guitar.
Yeah.
Is that on hold at the moment, or are you still doing a bit of that?
It's over. I'm retired. It's done. No, I was in a band called La Galaxy, and we did well, and we played festivals all around the world, and released 3 albums, and we had the record contracts. We didn't have the record contracts, and we had the publishing and all this kind of stuff. And for a while it was great fun, but it wasn't an overnight success. I spent all my time since I was in my teens trying to gain any sort of success in the music industry, and it finally happened on a kind of small scale, but it was a very, very nice experience. But we all got burnt out by it. We everyone in the band was just done, finished.
Really? Yeah. When did that finish up?
I enjoyed playing music. That was 2019. Only I think 3 months before COVID hit. So I think it would have finished up anyway. And it already seems like a lifetime away, but it would have been over when COVID hit anyway, because our bread and butter was really live gigs. Is what brought in the most money, and it was the most fun as well. Playing.
Would you go back to it?
I don't think so. No. I would make more music, but in terms of making it to tour the world and have record contracts and things like that, no, I wouldn't go back to it. It's a kind of bittersweet experience in that there's some great things that happen, but it's also hugely frustrating and incredible hard work for very little reward sometimes.
It's not all glamour like it's made up to be. No,
it's kind of weird. You have 10% glamour and then 90% absolute shit, and most bands only have 1% glamour, and they spend. It's the most crazy thing to do. To try and make a career in music is just insane. But I applaud anyone who tries to do it, because it's so difficult. If you want to make it a career, it's immensely difficult to have success on a commercial scale. Now, there are other ways of measuring success.
Yes.
People making amazing music, but it's not getting listened to. That's success.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed we have a couple of musicians on here on the show, people that are big into their music. And it's a difficult game.
Mark McLaughlin, we had him on. He plays music. Yeah.
Well, I've seen him play
whiskey and music go together. Yeah. Whiskey and music go together.
Well, one other thing I want to do is you had a very significant milestone a couple of weeks ago, and I saw a few photos of that. So, firstly, congratulations on finally, after how long, I don't know, getting married.
Right, yeah, I had to figure out what you were talking about. I had a classic lockdown wedding in June, or post-lockdown wedding, with 25 guests. and it was incredible. Yeah, it was really good. So thanks, Serge. It was a really good day.
Congratulations.
And it was a long time coming. I'm not going to say how long, but we've been together a long time, and it was more of a affirmation and sort of sealing the deal, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine after so long, it probably hasn't been life-changing or changing.
No, it hasn't. But it was an amazing day. But it wasn't life-changing in terms of things being different afterwards.
Yeah.
So
I find it hard to appreciate how you managed to fit so much in, because you did the music, you did the course, you do the store, you do a lot of the online stuff, you do the podcasting, and the reason you're over in Athens, of course, now is you like to partake in marathons, and I'll clarify that in a minute, for relaxation or for fun. So you partake in super marathons. Tell us a little bit about what a super marathon is first, and
ultra marathons.
Ultra marathons is what they call them, is it?
And it's anything beyond a marathon. So I did an ultra marathon in early September that was 44 kilometers, which is only 2 kilometers more than a marathon, but it still got to call itself an ultra marathon. But I'm here in Greece to run probably the most historic one in the world, called Spartathlon, and it's a homage in a way to the voyage of Philippides, who ran from Athens to Sparta to try and get the Spartans to join in fighting the Persians, I think it was. So this legend by Herodotus was that he ran the 246 kilometers from Athens to Sparta in a day, or rather he left at dawn and was there before dusk the following day, so 36 hours. And the aim of Spartathlon for most people is to finish the length of the course within 36 hours. It's very strict cut-off points, so you have to be at different checkpoints within a certain time frame. Otherwise, you're kicked off and you get put on a thing called the death bus and driven to Sparta. But the winning times are usually a lot faster than 36 hours, so kind of 22 to 24 hours, that sort of time would win the race. But it's an amazing event. There's people from all over the world, and it's like a music festival, like Glastonbury for ultra runners. And it's what people aim to go to. It's what they sort of aim to take part in.
But I can't imagine there's 40,000 ultra runners in the world, are there? I think it's a very limited.
There probably are. And I don't know how many people apply for Spartathlon every year, but it'd be in multiple thousands that actually try to do it, and they let in 350 this year.
This is your third time doing it now? This one, or your fourth?
Third time, yeah.
Third time.
First year I finished 10th, which was in 2018, and it was a hurricane, a full-on hurricane, not just a thing called a hurricane by some people. It was a category whatever hurricane, and that was an interesting experience. Most of the people dropped out that year through hypothermia or something cold related.
I would have thought if the hurricane's behind you back all the way, it would be okay.
Yeah, you would think so. That was just swirling around, so the wind was changing direction all the time. 2019 I did it, and it was really hot. The temperatures were like in the high 30s. I think it hit 36, 37, something like that. And I came fourth that year, which was an incredible result for me.
Incredible results full stop.
So that's why I'm back this year to see what I can do.
There's a photo of you there. I don't know, was that when you came fourth?
Yeah, that was 2019. And you can see I'm kind of happy about that.
Yeah. Nice Greek bays there.
Yeah, that's got the water from the Avrotis River, which is apparently sacred. So you get to. It won't be happening this year with COVID. All those kind of traditions are gone. So you traditionally run up to the statue of King Leonidas and kiss his foot. You're not allowed to do that this year. That's in ancient Corinth, past some lovely Greco-Roman ruins. If my history is right, they're actually Roman rather than ancient Greek. But
what have the Romans ever done for us?
Yeah, well, they invaded Greece and built some things.
Yeah. No, when most, well, certainly for myself, I probably hit the wall after 200 yards. The concept of doing over 100 miles just blows me. What kind of preparation goes into that, and how much of your time does this all take up?
Yeah, it's a lot of time and a lot of early mornings or late nights out there, and it's something you have to build up to. You can't just go out there and run a 100-mile race. At least you couldn't run it. You could maybe walk it, but no, it's something you have to build up to by doing marathons and then increasing the kind of race distance, but then also increasing your training runs and stuff. And there are lots of different methods of doing that, lots of different ideas on training. But in essence, I would be in a typical training week, I'd be running 100 miles or so within the week. And split up into different sort of training sessions and stuff, various intensities and speeds. But that's the way I do it. Some people would do a lot lower mileage, like even down to like 50 miles a week. And then other people would be doing 200 miles a week or such like. But I think the sweet spot somewhere in the middle, I like to think. Yeah.
So a marathon's like a stroll in the park for you then, is it?
I kind of, well, I wouldn't say a stroll in the park, but I've been pacer at Dublin Marathon on a few occasions, which has been really good fun, where you're given a time to bring people around the course in and say, that guy with the silly balloon on his back is the 3-hour pacer, so he's going to finish bang on 3 hours, and follow him and he'll finish there for you. So I've done that a few times, and it's been great fun. But marathons are hard. Like if you want to run them fast, I find them harder than ultra marathons. Half marathons and marathons are just really, really hard if you're running them at proper speed, competitive speed. It's a different kind of pain.
But what kind of food and dietary preparation goes into all of this? Is there a lot of that side of it?
I think I don't really think about it, but I think if you are training like I train, and if you are running as long as I have, then you gravitate towards healthier stuff in general. But I don't think about it. I don't think, oh, this week I have to eat so many kilograms of broccoli, or I have to have fresh kale every morning in a smoothie. I don't think like that. I eat what I enjoy, but I maybe eat less of the stuff that's not so good for me. But I still eat it. I just don't overindulge in it.
I suppose your body learns itself, and your tastes gravitate to what's good for you.
I think we should listen to bodies a bit more in that regard, where it's like, well, sometimes you have a craving for something salty. You probably need that saltiness, especially when you got a hangover.
Well, I mean, does drinking influence it?
It does, but I found, again, like gravitating towards healthy food. Especially when I have a race coming up. I say this, I'm drinking
with a glass in your hand.
But I would certainly be a lot more better behaved when I have a race coming up, or if I'm training heavily, than if I was laid off, or if I wasn't doing any training. It kind of keeps me on the straight and narrow in a way. It kind of stops me going out and sinking 8 pints, because I can't get up in the morning and go for that training run afterwards, and then I'd be grumpy all day because I haven't gone for a run. So
I mean, do you find that it is what's the word, endorphin effect on you as well? I mean, do you need to have that?
There's that, and I mean, there's a huge amount of talk about mindfulness, and a lot of that is kind of crap. Some of it is, but going out for a run to clear your head is the best thing ever, you know, or just going out for a run and not thinking about anything, or getting all these crazy ideas on what to do with, you know, work or your life in general. All those things come to me when I'm running. So yeah, it's a kind of, it's an added thing I have that gives me a bit more sort of groundedness and sanity, I suppose. Not really the right word, but something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of dedication has to be applauded on that. But how did you get into this? I mean, it's not, you don't wake up one morning and suddenly think, I'm going to become an ultra marathon runner.
Well, I initially got into it because I'd fallen off my bike on the Lewis tracks and bent my knee the wrong way, and after like 6 months of physio, I still wasn't getting any better, and I couldn't really walk without pain. So the physio was like, well, go for a run. Yeah. I was like, what? It's like, I can't barely walk in it. It's like, no, go for a run. You need to build up the muscle and everything there. And it kind of spiraled from then on. I kind of went from being able to run 2 kilometers to running 5 kilometers, and then running a 5-kilometer race, and then running 10 kilometers, and then running a 10-kilometer race, and then signing up for a marathon. And it's the way it happens for most people. Most people stop at a marathon though, and I think that's it. But I read a book by a guy called Scott Jurek, and he has this book called Eat and Run, and he talks about all the famous races in the world that he's done. And the race I'm here to run this week, Spartathlon, he won it twice, and that it's still like every time I go to that chapter on Spartathlon and read it again, I get goosebumps, because it's like I'm actually here running that same race that he inspired me to get into doing. And he was a guy that kind of sparked something in my head and made me think, I could probably give that a try. You know, I might not get to the start line, but I could try and do it. You know, because he came from an unremarkable background, but ended up being one of the best runners in the world. So
yeah. Are you in your life in general, would you say you take things to that kind of level where you do something, you have to do it to the max, or is just something that grabbed you?
No, I would say it's given me the running itself has maybe made me a bit more philosophical and in some ways relaxed, but in other ways a bit more driven in some aspects, where I'm not kind of thinking about the things that maybe drive you a bit mad and make you frustrated. I'm thinking about the more positive things in life, and how to get the most out of every situation, and basically make it more enjoyable, or make it more work for your own lifestyle. That's a bit vague, but I don't know if that makes any sense. Not stressing out over the little things, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously you have to be very driven to even contemplate something like this. So
yeah, that's a different thing. It's very internalized for me, where training for these races, I don't find it that hard to have the dedication to get out on a winter's morning and run for 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers in freezing rain.
Right.
I'd be more grumpy if I didn't do it. If I didn't go out and do it, I'd be a nightmare.
Yeah. It's amazing what people find something. It can be different things that keep them grounded, I suppose, or is there escape to some element as well? Well, when is the race? It starts on Friday.
Friday morning at 7 a.m. Greek time, which is 5 a.m. Irish time. I don't have the info, but there's live tracking for it. So every runner has a sort of a GPS thing attached to their shorts, and
so we can keep an eye on you.
You can do what they call dot watching, which is a very slow process of seeing these dots move across the map very, very slowly, and see how it transpires. There's some great runners this year. There's a guy, Thomas Bodish, who won it previously. He's running again. Czech guy, Radek Brunner, who's been on the podium something like 5 times, and a Spanish hotshot runner called Ivan. I can't remember his second name.
Yeah,
begins with a P.
Is there anybody else? Anybody else from Ireland there?
Yeah, there's 3 Irish runners and 3 Filipino guys who live in Ireland.
Right.
And then me, obviously, as well. So there's Anto Lee, Alex O'Shea, and Anne Jennings, are all Irish, and then Filipino guys. And me. Yeah.
Very good. Well, look, very best of luck.
Cheers.
I have huge admiration for where you've been able to undertake that, and you know, you should probably be getting some rest. I've kept you on longer than I don't know. Will you do a run this evening, or is that it now?
Oh, I went for one earlier. I just did a quick 6-kilometer run up to the old Olympic Village, which is right here. So which is kind of a bit sad to see because it's seen better days. But I went up that way and back just to keep the legs moving. Yeah. And
you were saying after this, in 3 weeks' time, you have another one, the Belfast one.
Yeah, it's the Irish 24-hour championships. So you basically run around in circles for 24 hours, which would be only similar to this event in that you're running for about the same time, but in terms of the mental process, it's a completely different ball game. Running around in circles again and again and again, you'd question the point of it. But it's, if you want to see how far you can run in 24 hours, it's a pretty interesting process because people are breaking records, whether it's Irish or British or world records at the moment. So it'd be amazing to see some big performances on the day. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we had a quick chat before, and you said the big thing for you is you can only control how you run, I suppose. And
I can do my bit, but if someone runs faster than me, then fair play to them. You know.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, look, very best of luck in it. I think
Cheers.
I'm jealous that you're in Athens, but I'm certainly not jealous in any shape or form of the run you're going to be doing. But maybe the celebrations afterwards will make up for it. And personally, I want to thank you very much for helping with our magazine, for being a guest on the show, and for being instrumental in, along with the other staff in Celtic Whiskey, for piquing my interest and knowledge, and that's all the staff at Celtic Whiskey. And for you, best of luck in your married life and in the runs.
Cheers.
And we will speak to you again when you get back. So
thanks, Serge. It's been great talking to you. And
you too.
I've saved some whiskey for the finish line. So that's it. Going to get enjoyed in Sparta, hopefully. So
well, look,
cheers.
Stay safe and very best of luck. Thanks a million. Now, take care.
See ya.
Bye. Well, for me anyway, that was fascinating. I can't even get my head around the dedication that it must take to do something like that. A really knowledgeable and modest and lovely guy, and I wish all the very best of luck in this and in his future career as well. So thank you for joining us. We'll catch you again next week, and take care. Good evening.